Welcome to the live.
I thought you were going to say welcome to the lounge. So,
Well, that'd be too easy. But
yeah,
we're in the lounge.
we are in the lounge. Yes.
So this is
the
our
show. Remember, it's the show before the show. So,
right. But that still makes it a show. So
it's the banter. It's the banter. I stay for the banter. So.
So the idea, well, what I'd like to say is I just try and get a little bit regular in saying welcome to anybody who's watching on Twitch or on YouTube. And if you stick around, we're going to talk about a couple of new sketches from Jamie, talk a little bit about architecture and the profession, a little bit about coffee. And if you have any questions, there is a chat. Feel free to throw a comment or question in the chat, even now or in when we get into some sketches. So,
well, you sound like a very capable managing editor today, Mr. Kurt.
Well, I have to live up to the hype that I've set for myself, because I think you're teasing me about managing editor, because we are the announcement for the AIA conference 2023 came out, so that the registration is open, and we have registered the podcast to be a media attendee of the conference. So,
which we have successfully done before.
True.
But
there's a thing called the pandemic.
There's a thing go back in the Wayback Machine. Go back and listen to those episodes about LA where we were super excited about so many, Kurt returning to USC, and I know there was all the Paul Williams stuff. I mean, it was just like,
I mean, even from the point at which the airplane lands and the Paul Williams.
Oh yeah, I mean, you were talking about it like okay, so you got to sit on this side of the plane. I mean, it was I was ready.
There were some specifics.
I was so ready.
We were well. One of these days, when it comes back around to LA, I'm sure it will. Hopefully not, too far out in the future, and we'll just have to reboot all those episodes and then prepare all over. I had even created a map. You
didn't tell me about the map.
I was starting to build a map, pins of things to do and go see in and around the area, walkable and drivable if we had transportation. So
what you're saying is we need to think about a road trip. Yeah. Okay.
Oddly enough, though, this year it's up in the Bay in San Francisco, which I'm not as familiar with, but I mean, it's a well-known city. You are probably more.
I mean, to some degree. I mean, obviously, like it was when I was a little kid, but elementary and middle school in San Jose. Fond memories of San Francisco and my clear affinity for the 49ers, Candlestick Park, San Francisco Giants, walking on the field as a little kid with the Chuck E. Cheese, Little League, camp for the Oakland A's. I mean, yeah, I was all about it.
What's a Chuck E. Cheese Little League camp? Is sponsored by Chuck E. Cheese?
They didn't bring Chucky, which is probably a good thing because that would have been super creepy. But yeah, somehow it was. I mean, those pizza parties. That was the birthday thing, and somehow I think their corporate rationale was like, we need to pair this up with a sport. While we've got all these kids sort of as a captive audience. And so they somehow, the Oakland A's thought it was an awesome idea which was, it was pretty awesome. Because, that was sort of back in the day when, like, most of the players showed up, for these camps and things like that. So, it was like going to an A's game, and pre-game, you're on the field with the players, it was kind of neat. Memories. Yeah, memories.
Yeah. And Chuck E. Cheese.
And Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, the pizza, it's like,
well, the one thing I remember.
And animatronics,
Skee ball.
Yes. Yeah.
And then tickets.
I like how we're both miming all of the same things from memory.
I know. Yeah. This is why the podcast has evolved past audio, because it needed to be some amount of visual.
Yeah, because there was plenty of that miming going on. Both of us talk with our hands. It's
tickets.
Tickets and road trips. So as we segue, I think it's time to start the episode, because I do want to talk about another road trip. So
okay, well let me start our intro, and then I'll meet you back in the lounge. Hey Jamie, how's it going?
Good. Episode 112. Here we are.
Yeah, it's been exciting. I honestly am very excited about the new year, our slightly evolved format. It's been a lot of fun kind of playing around with some of this. And now we've produced and uploaded I can't remember now, like what, 5 at least? 5 or...
Yeah, it was a pretty busy January and February. So yeah, we're
even with the short month.
Yeah, short month. Little gaps in there for some other events. We did good.
So
what's the coffee right now?
Well, I actually had to I got 2 cups, but I'm drinking out of this silicone pint glass. Just a little water, for the vocal cords. But the I think since we last spoke, I had to go and get some Rootless, our friends at Rootless, and I got the one they call dark, so it's their dark roast.
Okay.
And it has a nice art piece of a crow on the cover, or a raven, I suppose.
Or even like a grackle. Could it be like a grackle?
It could be a grackle. It could be, I mean, for the north.
Right.
Because it's some
probably more raven than grackle.
But yeah, that's what I've got, and I have not forgotten that I do owe you for the Super Bowl. And I know you will never let me forget. So, there's incoming. I'll just say that, incoming.
Good.
And, we passed, the Super Bowl was around Valentine's Day. So we passed that. We got the short month, we'll make up for it in March here. But so that's what I got. I like the dark, the dark roast is nice. It's got it's got that flavor, it's got a strong, intense flavor, but not too over the top. But these guys at Rootless are just doing what, I'm actually, before I ask you about your cup of coffee, I just saw the guys from Rootless post on their social media that they had a visitor, and I don't know if you have this chain in your area, but the founder of Big B Coffee, which is a Michigan-based coffee chain, And I think it's sort of spread around the Midwest a little bit. I don't know if they've made it quite as far as you.
Yeah,
The
Texas is not the Midwest. Yes.
Do you want it to be? Can we try and attempt?
I'm not sure I want it to be. Yeah.
So Mr.
I mean,
Big,
do you know what day today is?
March.
Texas Independence Day.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You'll have to explain to the contiguous 47 states what that means.
Oh, do I have to? I mean, let's just say Texas, and
Right.
We're special, and then we'll leave it at that.
So anyway,
and we're special in a lot of ways that we probably shouldn't be special about. So, but yes,
no judgment,
no judgment. Barbecue. We'll just leave it at barbecue. Some damn fine coffee. Sports.
Okay, well, we don't have to keep going.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So speaking of things, also special for my co-host Jamie, as his place of residence is Texas. So what are you drinking in coffee today?
I was running out, and so as a sort of a stopgap in between, trying to decide which local blend I was going to get next, because I felt like I hadn't been really diving into the local scene as much as I wanted to of late. So I did place an order with Little City. So I have some special ones coming. They're two. It's beans, but it's two blends that I have not had before, so that's exciting. And I'll save that for another episode. But in the meantime, I did send you that picture of the one that I found at the store that I just was like, this is an impulse buy. And so it's community coffee. Well, which is, it's a safe, good, safe. But it's their Mardi Gras blend. Whoa. A lot of cinnamon.
Is it?
And so, yeah, a lot of cinnamon.
You showed me the package. It's called the King's Coffee or King's.
Yeah, King's Cake. King Cake.
King Cake, right?
Yeah.
Which is Mardi Gras.
Get the little baby. There were no babies in the bag.
That was my next question. The key.
That would be marketing genius. But no, also creepy. But
genius. Kind of like Cracker Jack.
Yeah, you're like what's that sort of strange object in there? Yeah.
It reminds me of probably my favorite year of our committee work for AIA was when we had our meeting in New Orleans, just before Mardi Gras, with the Young Architects Forum, and what a hoot!
Yes,
I don't know. I've never. Have you been to New Orleans? Any other times? Because I've never been down there, and then to be down there around Mardi Gras, where every night and then as you get closer, every day and night is a party.
Yeah, I've been there one other time, not during Mardi Gras, and so it's a little bit more, you can sort of take it all in. But yeah, when we were there with Young Architects Forum, that was quite an event.
Yeah, it was a fun time. We need to just go back without committee work involved, just to enjoy.
Oh yeah,
the sights and sounds and all that. It's a cool city.
Well, I mean, you remember when we got there too? It was like we arrived at about the same time, and it was like we went and had beignets and coffee, of course, right? This is way before the Coffee Sketch podcast, but
it was.
Yeah, it was
Probably
just
where
laying the foundation.
That's
for
right.
things. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, no, we the fantastic beignets at Cafe Du Monde. Got a little sightseeing going because we were early, which was
Yeah.
excellent.
Yes.
And
Always smart.
and speaking of which, we haven't talked yet about the AI conference this year, but it is coming up.
Yes.
So we're kind of amped because we've been missing out
Missing
pandemic,
and we're hopeful that the powers that be, remember the podcast. They seem to today on the socials, because we were giving them some shout outs for one of our friends who's going to be doing a nice little sketch tour during the conference, which we're going to attend, of course.
Yes.
Probably bring some coffee, just as we should, maybe a microphone, and go from there.
Yeah, our friend Joel, a guest on our podcast. I believe I'm not going to guess. I thought it was around episode 50, but I think I'm wrong.
66.
66. Right. Thanks for reminding me.
Yes.
But that's a really exciting that he put that together and got that session signed up. And it's not even a terrible slot. It's 10 o'clock on a Saturday.
I know.
It's a nice time slot, It's so, it's not like you get the 8 o'clock or 7:30 slot, which is
which is the slot that Texas Society of Architects gives me for my 3-hour coffee sketch tour. But I have to admit, though, when they did ask me to start doing them, or kind of pitch the idea and back and forth, it was knowing how their conference is set up. It's the workshop, the 3-hour workshop starts the conference. So for me, it's kind of great because it's just like we're talking about with Cafe Du Monde, is like show up to the conference early, walk around and explore, have some coffee, sketch around. It's what I'm going to do anyways. So having a group of folks, doing it with me, that just sounds like fun. So I've done it for 2 years with them, and in San Antonio and then in El Paso this past year, and the next one's going to be in Fort Worth. So
excellent. Well, maybe I'll have to try and pop in, do a little drop in, visit, as they say in Michigan, have a visit with my friend Jamie.
Michigander speak vocabulary words and phrases. Neat.
It's an interesting, yeah.
Well, so we're talking road trips, which I'm going to say that we should have, and we were planning to try and pull this off, have this episode on February 24th and go live. So why don't you pull up that sketch, and we can we can chat over it real briefly, and then get to the other one.
Should we? So let me zoom in a bit over here for a second. Sorry, clean that up. Scoot. All right, there we go. Nice and simple.
So for the folks that have listened to us before, or listen to us, we probably drop it every 3 or 4 episodes. We'll make some mention of Twin Peaks. Kurt, when we started this podcast, mind you, had never ever seen the show. 0 episodes, and then we got him hooked, and so, which is awesome. And we even had my friend Jason on, who I've known, since we were teenagers, and which was when, Twin Peaks, arrived in our life. So imagine being a high schooler and watching Twin Peaks for the first time. Whoa. On network TV. But yeah, so in at the very beginning, Agent Cooper is driving into Twin Peaks, and he would always be recording messages to himself that I guess he would just relay to DC or whatever, the home office. And this mysterious woman named Diane, who sounded like maybe a secretary or assistant or something, or other agent, you're not totally sure, but he basically starts out by saying, Diane, 11:30 a.m., February 24th, driving into the town of Twin Peaks. So February 24th is henceforth Twin Peaks Day.
Forever will be known as Twin Peaks Day.
Yes.
Which is one day after my anniversary, which is why our episode didn't quite happen the way we had expected. So
it's okay. But but what was fun was, I always try and do a sketch for Twin Peaks Day of something related to Twin Peaks or inspired by it. And, I had been talking to Jason actually about, a road trip, like actually, going to some of these locations. And so the diner, the Double R, is pictured here in the sketch. It's an actual diner. It's a real place called Tweeds. And so you can go and have your damn fine coffee and cherry pie. So maybe a donut or two. So it's good.
Yeah, that's great. The thing about Twin Peaks is what I'm going to at least touch on is, because I'm going to put you on the spot, because I'm sure you haven't caught up yet to the amount of television that I've been viewing. But I told you, I think probably last Twin Peaks Day, we probably talked about this show called Outer Range that has Josh Brolin in it. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's fantastic, and it gives you. It only has one season still so far, and I'm like, just waiting for the day they launch another season. But it has so much of that mystery that's in a Twin Peaks style. So you still gotta check it out when you get a chance to. But then I've also tasked you with watching The Last of Us, which we briefly talked. I think we talked about a couple episodes ago, and I'm sure you're behind on that too. But that's okay.
Yeah.
You have higher priorities in making Twin Peaks Day sketches. And
yeah, I gotta draw. Like I gotta draw and keep this thing going.
Yeah. But that Last of Us show is just so good, and it has our favorite hero. He's now probably our American hero of all television, Pedro Pascal, who plays a really good hero kind of character in his own. He's in The Mandalorian. He's in The Last of Us. He's in Narcos. Have you watched Narcos?
I haven't seen Narcos.
Oh my gosh, he plays a detective in that, and I mean, he's good. He's just a good actor. Anyway, what's there? But anyway, The Last of Us also, it weaves in our sort of love for dystopian futures.
Yes.
Potential existences. Sometimes it feels that they're not just science fiction, but might be reality.
Right.
But anyway, so you got me on the kick for Twin Peaks as a show, and then I'm trying to share some ideas back to you. But to the sketch, before we move on to the other sketch, is this mountain range in the distance has the zigzaggy curtain or the floor of the red room vibes, the striping.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that until you started. I mean, it's but it's I think that there's the backdrop to this, like you say, is sort of, you know, I mean, it's been a couple days since I've kind of relooked at this sketch, and I mean, the building and all the other stuff came together. I mean, this was only like a 10-minute sketch. It came together rather quick, and even with that, I don't I don't remember thinking about it kind of as sort of a curtain and a backdrop, but it really looks like one to me. It has that sort of Black Lodge kind of feel to it. And then, like you say, like the red and the texture of the floor, and I mean, there's all these kind of like the thick curtains. The mountain range and the sky, have a little bit of that quality to it. Completely unintentional. Yeah, very, very. It's just like it's in the head, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so it's always fun. I really love that you revisit these things on these anniversaries, the Twin Peaks Day, and some of our other, like our resolutions episodes. And there's some other sketches that you'll, have these revisions of year after year. It's a lot of fun. So,
well, I mean, it's just for me, it's sketching is about memory, and so there's a definite part of that in all this activity. And going back to redo a drawing, I never had realized I did it as much as I did until we started doing this podcast. And it's not redoing the drawing exactly as it was. I mean, it's not like just like repetitive. It's sort of exploring the thoughts and the feelings and the memories about that particular thing, or it's something in my own memory that strikes me to go, I really need to, I really want to draw that. And those sometimes end up being the days in between a sketch that's in situ, out in the field somewhere, or project related or whatever. It's sort of where the mind wanders over a cup of coffee.
Yeah, which actually it could tend to segue to the other sketch, because I'm starting to see things. At least I'll let you know what I'm thinking is that just by you're talking about memory, drawing from memory, and so the Tweed's Cafe, or the Double R, and the perspective of the exterior of that building. And now for since I don't know this building, this might be one of your historic preservation projects or something, but now you've sliced, so what we call this is a section through a building. So a drawing that we call a section that slices through, like if you took a building and sliced it like a piece of bread, I guess is kind of the best way to describe it, and then looked inside, right? So you're looking into the building, and just proportionally, it's got the similar 2-point perspective angle that the Double R is in. But anyway, so more like this project probably doesn't have anything to do with Twin Peaks, but more so in that, like you said, as you were working through days that you make a sketch or in between sketches, and then your sort of hand-eye is kind of moving with similar maybe patterns or gestures and things like that. So then this slice of a drawing through a building, which you've done diagrammatic drawings, but this is a little more of a polished presentation section and perspective of a building. So it's pretty cool. And then so once I saw it on Instagram, I was like, ooh, beautiful. Typed a little comment. Beautiful.
Yeah, no. Well, and it's, I like that you sort of, described it as, these sketches sort of like there's a mode of the sketch that sort of finds its way into the next one, stylistically or even how I'm sort of viewing things, which is, I think, this one a little bit. It's that angle, and it's cinematic. it's how you're sort of framing up the view to tell the story. And I think that, yeah, I'm finding with myself and my sketches where they're, close in time, that there's a comfort level in a particular perspective. It's like I know how to do it. Like my brain's sort of thinking that way, scale wise or angle wise or perspectival, viewpoint. And so it's easy to kind of keep that going for a stretch. It's when I make that shift that sometimes the sketches aren't exactly the way I want them to be. There's the level of frustration that we've talked about before, but you sort of push through it. But yeah, this one definitely has the same angular kind of perspectival kind of quality, but it is a much more finished sketch. It's one that this is a much more lengthy drawing, and it's one for work. But it was one where the idea came to me very, very quickly. So kind of blocking in the pieces of it, that was like a coffee sketch, and it absolutely was, very quick. And I knew how I was going to kind of go about this one. The idea behind it, similar to the way you're talking about this sort of slicing the building and sort of revealing what's going on inside. The project that we're working on is what we're calling an Imagine the Possibilities tour. So, imagine the possibilities of this particular downtown building being reimagined, in, whatever city, Texas. And, the idea of the theater and the theater space is one that's, most small towns, medium-sized towns have that theater downtown or really close to downtown. And when the big movieplex moved out to the bypass or, stadium seating and all those kinds of things, projects that I worked on, in earlier in my career, those theaters sometimes, became art house movie theaters or, but they economically typically will struggle or have struggled. Some have gone into, disrepair, or they've been vacant for a time period, or they've been changed into something else. And then some just sit, like I said, just sit vacant. But the story of that place to the community, at differing ages and connections to it, bad, good, otherwise, it's an anchor. And it's an anchor both as an architectural object, but also sort of a community, gathering place. Everyone loves to go to the movies, right? And so, but sort of the thought here, though, is you can't recreate the past. That's not necessarily the goal, but you got to, think about, how do I respect those memories of this place and then re-envision it in an economically viable way? And so for me, it's thinking in section. Theaters are really big containers, and there's some opportunities to play with spaces and programming in a big container box, and then also potentially, because of that, depending upon roof structures and things like that, augmenting them or maintaining what's there, and supplanting it with some other ideas. Maybe there's some opportunities even on the roof that you're sort of seeing in the sketch. But again, it's that facade, that recognizable archetype of, this is a theater in a downtown context with a canopy, in a very, very kind of flat front that probably has, some neon or some signage or something like that, with, glass at the storefront as people walk by and into the small compressed lobby, where the ticket booth and the popcorn is. How do you draw that compressed space, which is sort of what that drawing is showing, and then open it up into the larger theater and say, what else could this be?
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of touch on that if you hadn't got, or weren't going to call it out, but the these downtown infill, they're in a typically middle block situation, 2-room theater. We've talked about them before because you've looked at some other buildings, and how to adapt in at least particular instances, with say barrier free or wheelchair accessibility, things like that we talked about. But the thing about your sketch is something I talk to my students a lot about lately, and I'm teaching a second year studio, so they're still trying to like understand proportion, volume, and form, and we're not really hitting them with a ton of spaces or what we call program, right? Like the how many rooms, bathrooms, corridor, things like that. It's relatively small scale project, but something like this, I mean, it's kind of similar to what we're working on now. But so they are just starting to understand the idea of like compress and release in space and movement, and creating this sort of attraction or what's the word, dynamic, like a sort of dynamic
like a
design.
tension, like a tension between design concepts. Yeah.
And so your lobby, and then how to render that, or present that, right? So your section, it's also full of life and full of what we call entourage,
Right.
people, furniture, a little bit of lighting, artwork thing. You're very good at that, sort of rendering this sort of the perceived function and use of the space. And then even the idea of like the things on the roof, which are kind of an interesting like additive sort of just I guess scale wise, or this sort of like, I can't think of anything other than, I don't want to call it a barnacle because it's not necessarily parasitic, but it's these these just these additions that are kind of
but they're held back. They're held back. Yeah, they're held back from the facade so that they're not sort of, you're not pronouncing that this thing has a big addition on it, but you're giving it that sort of vitality of space, that's sort of fun, and yeah, the entourage definitely makes the sketch in for sure. What I didn't say is, as this Imagine the Possibilities project is kind of coming together, these are going to be tours that are going to happen in a variety of cities. So what we're working on as a team, and I say it's a team project, is a poster, and so that we will distribute, and things like that. So these are sort of working drawings, working sketches, but they're going to be incorporated in work that sort of colleagues are doing, where we're going to hybridize it in Photoshop and take some real photos that we're manipulating in Photoshop with this sketch. And so you get this sort of blended reality of imagined and real, and playing with fonts and graphic design and all the other good stuff too. But yeah, this was sort of one of those not waking dream kind of moments, but it was like thinking of spaces that I've been in or studied, or as you say, been kind of working through as kind of concepts of late. And this is where my head's at.
Yeah, I love it though. I mean, like, just thinking about the idea of like this guardrail. Oh, I should use the other page, but like if we're looking at this entry, which this sort of stepped overhang, and then the guardrail, and then you can see the line carry across, and it's this solid guard that meets the top of the stair, and then it comes down 2 stories, or down to the first floor. It sort of creates this feature wall. Yeah, it's a lot of really nice things kind of going on. And then I just noticed that this is the projector room up here in the loft, really, and so it's sort of oriented toward this screen in the back, which could sort of be reused as a sort of casual theater or a presentation space.
Right. Or art gallery, and and then sort of dining sort of folded in there. So there's some suggestions of all these different um, realities that really, at this point, for a building like this, the economic reality is that it needs to be a multifunctional space.
Right.
And the programming of it by the community is incredibly important, and is something that you have to talk to the stakeholders and understand what's needed in that community. So for me, it's an imagined reality. This is a placeless place, even though it was a particular building from the front that sort of was the genesis for this slice idea. So it marries up really well with the perspective that we're doing, and we found a photo and kind of a community that we knew, and but these types of projects have some important steps in terms of programming, but at the same time, as the programming is essential, it's also helping folks realize how we as design professionals can approach a space like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be like, oh, well, yeah, we have to, put in a flat floor for the whole thing. And, and it's just sort of like stacking, layers of cake or something like that. There's some dynamism in the section and kind of carving of the space that, it is really kind of present in the sketch in both the entourage, but also the little things that you were just picking up on, the feature wall, and which is only a couple little lines, but you get that impression of what that is. There's a familiarity about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one other thing I was going to say, and I think I could be sort of wrapped up if you're ready, but the idea is it reminds me all the way back to my first day of first year, and my studio instructor asked everybody in the studio, and I probably have talked about this before. He asked everybody what we think architecture is. Like, what is the role of architect? What is architecture? And we all come up with our answers, right? Which none of us had what his notion was. We're all saying, oh, designing buildings or designing houses or designing, space, different kinds of commercial buildings, things like that. And his what he was driving at is that architecture is designing space, and in that it's not the physical object, but it's the space created by shaping. You're using these physical objects to basically shape the air, right? The space, the volume. It's very abstract. I guess it sounds abstract when I say it, but so this this building is a little sliver of a downtown, which is, like you said, is a container. So then, how do you reimagine? So that's the beauty of the architecture in the sketch, is that it's taken this rectangular box and then repurposed this indoor environment into a very dynamic, multifunctional space, like you said, where it needs to kind of serve in order to be viable, sort of respond to the various activity levels, things like that. So anyway, I think that's kind of what it reminds me of. And I think why I say that is just going back to first year. It sounds. I mean, we've been doing this for 20 plus years, but sometimes it is inspiring to just kind of go back to the fundamental and core ideas of what we're trying to achieve when we look at a building or look at a site or something like that.
So, as you say, sort of going back in the way back and kind of going back to the fundamentals. I was going to save this for the next episodes, but I'm going to tease it in this one because I have a prop. And this that we can close out on this and cut to the outro. But so where am I?
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Give me a sec.
Yeah.
Got it. What's that there? It says back to on the cover. It looks like an old sketchbook. Back to basics. But it's collage. It looks like you would have
there's a lot of like
figures. Are these early like studies from you just happen to have this handy, huh?
This is this is the sketchbook project, which I have not necessarily talked about on the podcast, but this book is like 10 years old. No, older than that. So it is 12, almost 13 years old. And it went away to a special project, and then toured the country for a while. And then there's a library that had all these books that had come in from all over the world. It was just sort of a fun thing that I was excited to do. I'll talk about it some more, maybe maybe do a reel and kind of show it fast or something like that. But I keep up with them, occasionally, and fortunately happened to see a post of theirs earlier this year that I knew that they had a fire and in their library, in their gallery, and I didn't even want to check to see if and ask if my book was like burned in the fire. I just didn't even want to know. When I saw this post, they were saying that they're officially closing, and they found some homes for the books, but it just didn't sound like it sounded very, very sad. And so I just, at that point, I inquired and asked, was mine burned in the fire? Is it still there? And because they were saying, if you want it back, if you want your book back, get in touch. And so I got it back.
That's great.
Which was pretty exciting.
That's cool.
And what's funny is I had accepted the fact, this is Zuko. I had accepted the fact that, the book was gone. It was living somewhere else. I'd parted with it. I was happy with that as an art piece. Other people were enjoying it. It was part of this collection. And then the fire, that was very, I'm not even sure what to, can't even imagine. No words for that. But yeah, so I have it back. So, and it's a very, it's a strange feeling, having something like that, it was an interesting project. So it's one that I'm kind of looking at and thinking, about, making this, when I did. So
yeah, right. I mean, it could be a fun one if we did our dust off our old lightning round, our lightning round concept. Given that it's been out of your hands for so long,
right?
Now returned back to you. I mean, and so yeah, that could be a fun one. That'd be cool. We'll find some way to repurpose that.
Well, thanks. This has been fun.
Yes, as always. Thanks a lot.